Want to grow your business faster? This is Isar from the Business Growth Accelerator, and my guest today, Jerry Macnamara, and I are going to geek about how to grow your business faster. Jerry is a sought-after coach, and he's going to share his step-by-step framework that he gives to CEOs of companies, small and large, to help them grow their business faster. Brilliant.
The biggest mistake that I ever made as a senior leader was that I didn't have a business coach. I didn't have a business roundtable or, a place where I was getting external information into me. And so it's ironic that that's what I do today, because I look back and think about, geez, just how humbled I am and how lucky I was to be in the right place at the right time and surrounded by amazingly talented people. It is incredibly humbling. I think when you look at bringing people in to help you, it just accelerates the path forward. And, I think, we went from 7 million to 30 million in 3 years.
Wow.
With a construction company. And so I think I've always tried to measure success, not by what is, but what should have been. And so, yes, I celebrate our success. I didn't do it alone. And there's so many people that are involved in that. But craving that outside perspective, I think, is something that every senior leader should do.
How do you find that happy medium between taking care of yourself as an individual so you can thrive, so you can help the company thrive?
Yeah, so the example I always give, which I think most people use, we were just talking about travel. When you're in an airplane, they tell you, if in case of an emergency, if the masks drop down, make sure you put it on yourself before you can put it on other people, or to ensure that you can put it on other people. And I think that's really, really clear. I mean, The Giving Tree, which is a favorite book, tells us that lesson. If you give and you give and you give to the point where you can't give anymore, when you're on a hospital bed, it doesn't really work or matter. And so caring for yourself is super important. I'll share a story with you, Isar.
Please.
I was 26. We were running the soccer retail company. We were raising venture capital. I was a young person and I was riding high. Felt super important inside that. Ego was, unreasonably out of control. And so, I had the bandwidth to work 100 hours a week. And it was a badge of honor where I would sleep on my couch sometimes because I'd work so late at night.
Yeah.
And Valentine's Day, I felt like I was having a heart attack, not because I didn't have a date for Valentine's Day, but because I was under so much stress. And I literally remember laying on the hospital gurney with the electrodes on my chest and thinking to myself, what have you done? And so I just really believe that if you're not whole as a person, there's no way you can contribute to the business. So very clearly, at least in my world, the most important is the people, because the people drive the business. The business will, if I had died that day, the business would have continued on, right? Maybe differently, maybe less effectively, but it would have continued on. So the balance always has to be, put your own oxygen mask on first.
If you kind of take a step by step through, let's assume I'm a CEO of the company. What questions do you ask me? What do I need to ask myself? What are the areas we need to look into in order to create that framework and move forward?
Yeah. So the first part of it is the foundation, right? So if we don't know where we're going, we don't have the vision of where we're going and the impact that we're going to make, it's very hard to get people on board and to create a compelling place. Let me give you an example. If I tell you, Isar, I want you to come join my company. We're going on this amazing adventure. And I take you on this adventure and we end up at the beach because I really love the beach. And I'm super pumped up about it. And you get there and you say, this really sucks because I thought we were going to the mountains. I love to ski, right? Without that clarity of where we're going, what I call the road, here's the road that we're going on, then it's hard to make really good decisions every single day to allocate the resources onto the opportunities to unlock the success for the company. So I always start there. And I think it's trite, but at the end of the day, if you actually go into businesses and ask them, what is their vision? There's so many people that say, yeah, that's important, that's important. But you say, show it to me. Where is it in writing? And they can't do it. And so clearly articulating where your vision is, where you're going, the impact that you're going to make is the foundation.
Who do I need around the table? What's the process I need to do in order to say, okay, this is the vision of the company?
I think when you look at most small businesses, stage one, stage two businesses, the vision always emanates from the founder, right?
Sure.
Why did they start the business? What is it, the impact that you're trying to make? And so depending on where you're at in the growth of your business, if it's still a solopreneur and you're sitting there at the table and you say, what's the impact that I'm going to make on the world? If you have a senior leadership team, then you want to have the key players sitting at the table, because it can't be top down. Once you've brought 25, 50 people into your party, you can't, as the leader, then simply say, or the founder, simply say, well, here's the vision. It does not work top down. It has to become shared at that point in time. And so depending on what your structure is of your leadership team, having the right people at the table is critical. Otherwise, it'll just end up being words on the wall that people walk by every day and isn't a measure of how we allocate resources on the opportunities. And so the practical advice is, if you don't have one, how do you know where you're going? I'll give you the example. I mean, I talk to a lot of businesses, and one of the questions I ask is, what do you want the business to do for you? Why did you start the business? And almost to a T, every person who's disillusioned, who's frustrated, who's burned out, they kind of sheepishly shrug and they say, I'm not sure. I don't know why. They've lost sight of that. And so when you have no vision of where it is that you're going to try and go, you blow like a leaf in the wind. And then you wonder, why am I not getting what I want? And so clearly define it. It is super important. Values, said differently, is your operating system, right? It is exactly what we celebrate and what we don't tolerate. And so when companies become soulless, it's because we have these words on the wall, these values, but our actions don't tell us that those are actually what we believe in, because it's not what we're celebrating and it's not what we're not tolerating. And so if you can think of your values as the operating system of your company, that's a critical core component of creating a compelling company. And compelling companies literally at the end of the day outperform. They always outperform. And so if you can get your values to be really clear, where you can be so predictable in how you're going to allocate your resources, people will have clarity. They're going to know exactly what they need to do, how they need to do it. The execution goes up through the roof. Trust is through the roof. It's a fun place to work, right? And you continue to drive performance.
When we hire people, the first questions we ask them about what their values are, and we let them list it. Mm-hmm. And if they're totally off, like from our perspective, there's no point in moving forward in looking, okay, how are their skills aligned with what we're looking for? Because we know long-term, it's not going to work. Like the DNA is going to be so different that, again, their decision versus our decision, or not even the decisions, the decision-making process is going to be so different that somebody's going to be frustrated. And so I agree with you 100%. I think finding ways to align people, but I think you got to start with people that at least somewhat align. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I always say, you hire for attitude, we train for knowledge. So one of the companies that I've helped in the past has experienced extraordinary growth. The CEO is so open to my coaching. I'm so grateful for him. But we implemented a recruiting process, and we identified what are the key traits and characteristics that we're looking for candidates that are going to be successful inside our business. And so what we did was we went through, there were 4 questions and traits that they were looking for inside that business. And we just asked questions that illuminated whether that person had alignment or not. And the only person, so the first stage is a phone interview. The only people who actually make it through to speak to, like VPs and things are people that make 10 out of 10 on all 4 questions. And we have a very clear scale of what a 10 out of 10 response is. And so it's amazing what happens when you start to elevate the level of people that come into your business. You can just move faster and faster and faster. And so I talk a lot about this. This is more on the 9P3 side, but it relates here, which is, sometimes we hire out of pain and we allow those 6s and 7s into our business. And at the end of the day, all they do is slow things down. They take more hand holding. They don't figure shit out. It just becomes, it's like, sand inside the gears of your business. And so, yeah, it's harder to go find the 10s, but boy, your organization moves so much faster when you take the time to hire the 10s. It's epic people beget epic people. And so bring those people in, make sure there's alignment, and you'll move so much faster.
So we said vision and mission, then we said values. What's next? You said objectives.
Yep. So objectives stem out of your vision. And so that's really more of a strategic planning piece. But the last piece in the foundation are your resources. And your resources are everything from, your finances to your network, to your intellectual property, depending on what business you're in. But it's all the resources that the company has to bear to be successful. And so, when I first started vetting this model, I really just had it as finances. And the reality of it is, it's much more robust than that. To say this differently, your resources give you an indicator of how many mistakes you can make before you become successful, right? If you start something with $1,000, I can't go buy the Mercedes. I've got to buy the jalopy. And I hope the jalopy doesn't break down. And I hope I'm a mechanic that can, fix the oil leak. It just means that the resources and my ability to make mistakes is smaller and smaller. And so, for people starting businesses, I would tell you, raise more money than you think you need, because it's going to take twice as long and cost twice as much. And so you don't want to get caught short on your cash flow, especially, most businesses, they don't go out of business because they're not profitable. They go out of business because they don't have the cash flow to support and sustain the marketplace that they're in.
For sure.
And so that's a critical piece.